All right. Am I live? I'm live. Okay. Sorry for a little bit of a late start. I had some problems connecting to the internet tonight. So I had something ready to go in the chat box for you guys tonight. A quick poll to start us off for the evening. So let me get that. Oh. Okay. So now I know that I'm live. I'm watching myself so I can see your comments as well and be able to keep up with you guys because you're gonna flood me with comments. So do me a favor. If you're there, can you just say something in the comments? Because I can't tell all of a sudden the little viewer icon I have down to 0. But on my phone it says 4. So if you're there, can you type something in the chat for me so I can see that you're there? Let me make sure we're good to go here. So Richard Parsons, if you're there, can you write in the comments? Oh, he's there. Okay. All right, good. I was going to say you're one who better be checking in to say that you're here. So if you're tuning in with me tonight, can you just make sure you let me know that you're here in the comments, partly because I have somebody who should be winning a Dunkin' Donuts gift card tonight based on the topic, but I don't want to give that away yet. And so what I'm going to do here is I am going to start us off with a poll. Poll. All right. So I just put a quick poll link in there. If you could do me a favor, and this kind of goes along with talking about tonight, so this will kind of help me get some feedback. I can pull up. It's an anonymous poll, so I'm not going to know who you are. You can put it in as many times as you want. There's no prize for this one except for a participation trophy that has yet to be purchased. So do me a favor, and if you would, just take a quick moment here to click on that link and give me a quick answer here. And the question is, when do you feel most lonely? So as we do that tonight, I am sporting, this is one of my favorite coffee mugs. It's pretty, ow, that's my coffee warmer here. I don't know that you're going to be able to see it. Oh, never mind. We're just going to leave it right there. It's a big donut, and it's a warmer, but it really does a good job of warming the bottom of my cup. So this is a cup that I received from a student probably about 10 years ago. It's a Monopoly cup, so it's got the don't pass go, the free, or the pass go, and the free parking. But this is one of my favorite mugs that is still, it's very well worn, if you can tell, fading. But tonight's choice of drink for me is hot chocolate. So I would have done coffee, but I want to sleep tonight, and I've had a few cups already today. So if you're just tuning in, if you can let me know that you're here, just give me a quick shout and say that you're here. I see we have a few people on with us, but that's partly because I'd like to know, partly because I have a gift card to give away to someone, but they have to make sure that they check in. So you might be wondering, what is this gift card that I'm talking about? Well, if you follow the Lessons from the Waiting Room Facebook page, if you're a part of the Coffee Talk with Kim group, you probably saw a link that I posted. It's a Google form that you click on, and you give me your ideas of talking topics. So I plan to use basically any and all of those that I can. So when I use yours, if you are watching that night and you let me know, in the comments that you're here, I will send you a digital Dunkin' Donuts, or if you would rather Starbucks, I think I can do those digitally as well. Send them to your email, send them to your phone number. So make sure you give me those ideas. I will try to, in a minute, post that into the chat here. So, okay, let me make sure I didn't miss a notification here. That was okay. All right. So tonight's topic, as you guys have been putting in some of your response, I appreciate that so far, and I think you're able to see the graphics too when you put it in. The question was, when do you feel most lonely? And right now we're kind of split across the board. Some of the topics were the holidays, social events, church, parties, family events, and my favorite, when I'm alone, duh. So right now we're kind of split in a three-way tie between the holidays. Is that when I'm alone, duh? I think when I'm alone, duh. And parties. All right. So if you're just joining in, maybe try to hop on and give that quick poll. I'm talking about loneliness tonight, and I wanted to first share a couple of resources. This Lysa TerKeurst is one of my favorites, and this book, it's kind of funny. I actually got it as a Christmas gift. It's called Uninvited. I actually asked for it, so it's not like somebody was telling me you're uninvited. But I also have her Embraced devotional, which has a lot of some similarities between what's in her Uninvited book, and these are just like everyday reading passages. You made it. Hey, Kenny and Terry. And for those of you that are going to tune in later, big congratulations to my brother and sister-in-law. They are Pop and Nona. Once again, their daughter just had twins, and brought it up to number 4 for the great grandchildren. So congratulations to them, and speedy recovery to my niece as she's and her little ones, as they hopefully get home pretty soon. So talking about loneliness, this was actually a topic that was suggested by one of our viewers, and I was hoping that they would tune in tonight so that they could win a gift card, and maybe they will by the end of our time. But I wanted to read a little bit of a story from here to start our time off, and from chapter 4, it's called "Alone in a Crowded Room." I don't know if you've ever felt that way, maybe at a certain time in life, or maybe you're an introvert and you always feel alone in a crowded room because you don't really know how you want to interact with others. So I'm just going to read just a little bit of this. By Lysa TerKeurst. She said, "I wish the small room would open up and swallow me whole, just envelop me into an abyss that would simultaneously hide me and remove me." She's not dramatic at all. "It's painful to be in a crowded room and feel all alone. Everyone had someone. They're chatting and laughing, lilted and lifted in a symphony of connection. I looked around and there wasn't a soul I recognized. 50+ strangers to me, but apparently friends with one another. My brain demanded I just walk up and introduce myself to anyone, but my heart sensed they were all knee-deep in conversations that would be super awkward for me to break into. Desperate for my aloneness not to become painfully obvious to others, I knew I had to look busy and intentional and effortlessly okay with my solo status. I whipped out my phone with such urgency it would seem the world might just stop on a dime if I didn't attend to some urgent matter. I refreshed my Instagram 4 times, and I answered an email. It was crucial to thank my vet that very moment for the reminder of my dog needing shots. Good gracious, what had my world come to? I felt like glances of pity were stabbing me. Hello, middle school. I thought I had rid myself of you when I was but a wee tiny thing with no such words as cellulite and stretch marks in my vocabulary. But obviously not. Time to move across the room. Please, Lord, let me get the vibe from someone, anyone, that it would be okay for me to join in their conversation. I walked over to the food table. 3 carrot sticks and 4 stalks of broccoli with some ranch never looked so appealing since it gave me something to do. Something other than count the dots on the swirls of the patterned carpet. Then I spotted what I hoped would be my saving grace. The dude serving soda. He was standing behind a table full of water bottles and cans, looking utterly fascinated with absolutely nothing. Score! He could be my person for at least 10 minutes if I could think of enough questions to ask him. Surely I would remind him of his mom or sister or his cousin whom he had to take to prom last year to appease his begging aunt, and he'd be so happy to fill the conversational needs of this desperate, frizzy-haired girl, which, of course, would give me something else to chat with him about. Hair situations, yes, beyond brilliant. I could explain to him that my hair frizzes when I sweat, unless I use this amazing product that I pay my hairdresser too much for, but I'd forgotten to pack it for this trip, and so, haha, it looks like I'll get a call from the 80s any minute asking for their hairstyle back. Then we'd both laugh, and this young soda boy would suddenly become my BFF for the rest of this painful gathering. For real, this was a good plan. So, with great expectations, I walked up and decided to just play it cool with my first question. Then I'd get to the hair frizz and the 80s calling, and with him being my new BFF. But first things first, after all, I didn't want to appear desperate, you know. So I asked him where he was from. Best first question ever. Except when he replied, here. And then turned and walked back to the kitchen. I want a do-over. I should have jumped right into the whole hair talk. At least that would have held him hostage for at least 5 minutes. Now I had nothing except the desire to chase him into the kitchen and ask if I might hide in the pantry for the next hour or so. I endured 10 more minutes of nothingness at this gathering and then made up any excuse to tell the host why I needed to scoot. Note the carefully chosen word scoot, which was code for hustle as quickly as possible back to my hotel room, dive into the lumpy bed, and pull the covers over my head for days or possibly forever. That was yet to be determined. Isn't it strange how you can literally rub shoulders with lots of people but feel utterly alone? Proximity and activity don't always equal connectivity. And I wanted to share that to start off because, especially this is by Lysa TerKeurst. I know we had some more people join us. I wanted to share that because I think she so adequately portrayed how I feel sometimes when I can be in a room full of people and feel so disconnected, feeling like I may not have anything in common with people, or not knowing how to start a conversation, or afraid of how I'm going to look if I feel awkward. Most of the time I just crack a joke or be a goofball. But there are days when I'm not feeling that. And I know the reality is that there are some of you, especially the person who suggested this, who might have some experience of that, maybe a little bit of anxiety when you go to a party or you're in a big gathering or a banquet. For me, when we first changed churches, I felt very alone at church because I didn't really know anybody, and everybody had their little circles. I'm sure your church doesn't have little circles, but mine did, and sometimes it still does. But I just didn't know the right people in the right circles, and I didn't really fit any group. And so church was kind of a place that felt lonely to me, which is kind of sad. And maybe, I'm not always the best at reaching out, going out of my way to meet new people. And that's something I have to work on. But loneliness, it looks different. You can feel alone in a crowded room. Maybe you feel lonely because you are all alone at home, or maybe you're all alone. You feel all alone in this season of life, or maybe you feel all alone in something that you're carrying that not everyone else can know about. So there's all types of aloneness. Something else I wanted to share with you. And once again, as you pop on, if you want to give us a response, I'd love to see if any other things come in on the poll. We're still at a dead heat. Who is going to break the tie between when I'm alone, holidays, and parties? Somebody out there's got to be the tiebreaker. One of the things I've come to realize is when I ask myself the question, why do I feel alone? Obviously, something is missing. I'm not feeling fulfilled. To where I can be in a crowded room and still feel isolated. What is the source of our loneliness? And she goes on in her story to talk about she realized she was relying on other people to fill that void. She was looking at what other people could do to her, do for her. So she had these unrealistic expectations for other people to be able to fulfill her in a way that she was needing. And she went on to say, we must respect ourselves enough to break the pattern of placing unrealistic expectations on others. After all, people will not respect us more than we respect ourselves. When we put unrealistic expectations on others to fulfill us, there's only one who can fill us in every way that we need it. She wanted to give the illustration of, people are willing to give someone who is in crisis CPR, but they're not able to sustain someone on life support by giving CPR. That's unrealistic expectations, and we can't expect people to fulfill us in those ways. So when we're looking at this loneliness, like, we have a problem here. What's the source of our fulfillment, right? What is it that we're looking for to fill us? What are we looking for to get our sense of worth? Is it that somebody recognized me, that somebody talked to me, that somebody liked my Facebook post, that somebody liked my ad that I created hoping to generate more buzz on my Facebook post? If I don't have any friends, on Facebook, am I going to be all alone, feeling lonely? Where does my sense of worth come from? So we have a problem. So what's part of the solution? I have a few different things to give. Some from a Christian standpoint, and some just from logical, everyday common sense standpoint. But one of the things that Lysa talks about is realizing who she is in Christ and what she has to offer. So she talks about in Ephesians 3, verse 14, it says, "For this reason I kneel before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth derives its name. I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power, together with all the Lord's holy people, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God." She says, my favorite part of Paul's prayer is him asking that we have the power to grasp the fullness of the love of Christ, for then we will be filled with the fullness of God. It's impossible to grasp the fullness of God without grasping the fullness of the love of Christ. At the core of who we are, we crave acceptance that comes from being loved. To satisfy this longing, we will either be graspers of God's love or grabbers of people's love. And so now she says when she walks into a room, she has to ask herself, Am I looking for what other people can do for me? Or she says, do I walk into situations prepared with the fullness of God in me, free to look for ways to bless others? Or do I walk into situations empty and dependent on others to look for ways to bless me? So now it's a difference in shifting how we think. When we walk into the room, she says, we got some, I don't know if you heard that, but that was a loud crash of thunder. I jumped a little bit, too much coffee. She says, when I walked into that gathering, I could have been fully prepared by saying to myself, I bring the fullness of God into this room with me. Therefore, I am on assignment to bring his acceptance and love into this place. And so for me, that has been a challenge to me of when I'm going into these lonely situations. Oh, hi, Mom. She finally made it. When I go into these situations, am I going in knowing that I have the fullness of God in me and I have something to bring to any conversation? I have something to offer to anyone who's willing to listen. I have the fullness of God in me, so I don't have to feel alone. I can go and make conversation. But what about for those who are struggling with general loneliness? I know I was talking about being lonely in a crowded room, but what about those who are suffering from loneliness in a season of life? For a while, I've kind of gone through a loneliness in season of life because most of the people my age have kids, they have things. So finding people to hang out with for my husband and I can be a bit challenging. Not that we don't want to hang out with people that have kids. It's not what I'm saying at all. But our flexibility is a lot different. Sometimes the expectations on people that don't have kids is that you are available anytime and all the time, and there's not many demands on your life. I mean, you kind of find things that fill your time, but for a while, I've kind of felt alone in that season of my life because I felt like there's not a lot of people who know what that season of life is like when you're almost middle age. So, I understand that there are difficulties that we face that are not just because we've lost loved ones or not just because maybe we're an introvert and we don't like being in big crowds. You didn't know you could join that's all right. So you guys who just joined, if you want to, there's a link there that you can click and chime in on our poll on loneliness, because that's what we're watching, or that we're talking about. So hopefully I'll see them as they come in. But I'm curious to know if you guys are out there, what are some areas? I mean, I see the poll about, sometimes it's holidays. I would definitely say holidays are a time that we can really feel lonely. And I think it really depends on, I'd be curious to know what holidays you guys would say are the lonely holidays for you. I know Christmas can be one. I think it really depends on what kind of holidays your family has held big traditions. Like a lot of families like to go trick-or-treating. That's one of their big things. So Halloween is a huge, the child that we were planning to adopt loved Halloween. Just, I think it was for going to get candy or whatever, but I'd be curious if you're out there and you want to chime in on what holiday tends to be the hardest for you. I know Christmas tends to be a hard one for me because there's so many traditions, and I felt like we've waited a long time to kind of try to build traditions for a family, and it's kind of like, okay, well, what do we do in the meantime? So we have taken to cutting down a Christmas tree. I don't know if you've ever heard my story about getting poison ivy from one of the Christmas trees that we found. We called that one the tree of death. That tree did not last very long, but the rash down the back of our legs and arms and all of that did last for quite a bit. Pretty itchy situation. But anyway, I always try to find something that's beneficial to this applicable. So I went online and I looked to find some simple ways. I mean, you can find 6 things you can do to fight loneliness and 1 thing you shouldn't do. Six simple tactics to fighting loneliness. How to deal with loneliness. 5 ways to stop feeling lonely. Okay, so one of these is from Cigna. One of these is I don't even know. But I kind of went through and I got some of the general topics that they gave, but I thought it was interesting here some of the statistics that were given, that according to AARP's loneliness study, this was written in 2018, 6 simple tactics to fight loneliness. According to AARP's loneliness study, which surveyed adults ages 45 and older, more than 35% of older adults are lonely, and loneliness is a significant predictor of poor health. This report also found that lonely people are less likely to be involved in social events, which too can mean poorer health, since being social is so important for your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. So other consequences of loneliness include 45% increase in risk of death, 59% greater risk of mental and physical decline, development of brain biomarkers associated with Alzheimer's, more likely to need long-term care and live in nursing homes. But the good news is being aware of your community involvement level, which means your family, friends, neighbors, or beyond, can help you focus on developing good daily habits so that you can better age in place by being healthy, happy, and active. I thought that was some interesting. Those were some interesting stats. So, what did I find in common from all these sources? Well, how to deal with loneliness. First of all, the top 10 from these 3 sources. Acknowledge your feelings of loneliness. Identify it. The second one goes hand in hand. Write it down and reflect on what is missing. I don't know if you journal, but writing those things down can help you process it. So acknowledge maybe what's missing. What is it that you feel like you're missing that's making you feel so lonely? Maybe it's the loved one, okay? Maybe it's the lack of a resource, the lack of something that's a comfort. Maybe it's your teeth. I don't know. I just felt like I needed to say that. See if anyone was listening. All right, number 3, know when to engage and disengage from social media and technology. So technology can be a really good thing. The internet can be a really good thing. Sometimes it's a really depressing thing. I know for our parents, we got them Facebook Portal one year, and that's been probably one of the best things we've ever gotten for them. Yes, as somebody said, I think social media can make loneliness worse. There is something in one of these studies that talks about how it can make loneliness make it worse. Sometimes, and especially, I don't know how many times you've seen people, maybe even older people that you've known that are known to repost the definite scams or the fake news. Well, actually, that kind of happens. Hey, Molly. I'm glad Molly chimed in. Molly is our winner for this week. So big round of applause for Molly for picking a really good topic we all need right now. Coming off of social isolation, right? And we've had to rely kind of on technology for quite a bit. So yeah, and there's all kinds of studies coming out on the effects of COVID and isolation, and how that has affected people's psychological well-being. So yeah, it's knowing when to engage, when to disconnect from social media, but definitely technology can be a help for you to connect with people if you're not able to get out of the house. And a lot of times we text too, but a lot of times stuff gets lost in the meaning of text. So just being mindful. The what we call FOM, the FOMO, fear of missing out. A lot of times we can look at social media and see what everybody else is doing. I look at social media and see, how in the world do people keep their houses so nice and clean? I got mounds of dog hair piling up in the corner of the stairwell in our house. I mean, in everybody's beautiful, lovely projects, I can't manage to keep a houseplant alive. And it's we look and judge other people's lives by social media a lot. So that cannot be our sole source of keeping in touch with reality, because how much of that is actually reality? We're seeing the best of someone else's world. You're right. So the knowledge of when to engage and when not to engage. Mom and dad say they love their portal. That's a good means for them to be able to keep in video contact. Highlight reel. Yep, it's definitely a highlight reel. All right. Oh, we got some more poll come in real quick. Let me shift to this. Social events. Now we're at 2020. Okay. Yes, grieving the loss of people. You feel utterly alone because the void that person has left is so great. And it's hard because sometimes we feel like we're so alone in it. And yet the really cool thing, I say it's cool, maybe we don't think it's cool sometimes, but the fact that God allows those things in our lives so that, and I know there's people on this streaming right now who have experienced the loss of parents, several people. And just how merciful and acted of God that we are not in the boat alone. That while we hurt, we know He's not going to waste that hurt, that we can be able to comfort others in the same way that we have been comforted, even though it's not pleasant half the time or any of the time, really. God's given us that opportunity to put a positive light on it. Certainly, it's a very difficult thing to deal with, that loss of the loved one, but God has not left us alone. And I'll more about that at the end. Quarantine, yes. Somebody put quarantine on there. Yes, definitely quarantine was a time of feeling alone. I don't know about you. First little bit of quarantine, I was liking the aloneness. I had my own room of the house. My husband had his own room of the house to work while we were under quarantine. All right, so acknowledge how you feel, your feelings of loneliness. Write it down and reflect on what's missing. Know when to engage and disengage on technology. And staying connected when you can with technology. Do a project. You can grow something and then put pictures and make everybody have feelings of a fear of missing out. I don't know. But do a project. Rearrange your closets. Iron. I hate ironing. I never iron. I use the Downy sprinkle spray. Anyway, 5, volunteer and focus on others. Volunteer, focus on, oh, Mom, you painted rocks. That's nice. Join a group or a club. If it's that you've lost someone, maybe look for a group in your church that you can relate to. Find your, it's sometimes it's hard to find people that are in the same group. But maybe look for a support group at a local community center if your church doesn't have something, or maybe you're the one to start it. I know I've been in that place and I'm like, man, we really need this support group, but I don't want to be the one to start it. So I understand that if that's you. Take a class. Man, I'm on my second master's. I don't know how much more I can keep going with taking a class. But it can help with loneliness. Maybe take a pottery class, a cooking class. Your husband, well, yes, write cards is a good one, a good example. Number 8, self-care. This includes exercise and sleep. Maybe your eating habits, taking care of yourself. Maybe that means getting yourself into counseling to grieve your loss, to process, take care of yourself. I know that kind of focuses on ourselves, but it's not wrong to take time to take care of ourselves. Our mental health is just as important as our physical health. God has equipped men and women all around the world to deal with our mental health and to help us be mentally healthy so that we can further expand God's kingdom and to be a resource to others that are hurting. Under self-care, reconnect with nature, get out in the sunshine. I try that. I break out like crazy. I still have hives on my forearms, although that might be poison ivy. I'm not sure. But I still have hives on my forearms from being out over the weekend doing yard work and such. Number 9, get comfortable with the silence. Ooh, the S word. Oh, getting comfortable with the silence. That doesn't sound like fun. But this is also talking about mindfulness, sitting with it and say, okay, it goes back to reflecting and acknowledging how you're feeling and being okay with silence. I mean, what does God say that after all this God, there was an earthquake and God wasn't in the earthquake. There was all this noise around and God wasn't in this. But after that, there's a still small voice. And in the midst of all the loudness, we can't hear what God's trying to teach us. So get comfortable with a little bit of silence. And then 10, practice gratitude. That can come in your journaling, that can come in your prayer life, that can come in choosing Bible verses, selections of Bible verses that remind you of the goodness of God. These are all some things that I found to go along with how to deal with loneliness. And I saw some other ones: painting rocks, writing cards. If you have others you'd like to add in there, go ahead and throw those in. We'd love to see it. If you haven't filled out our poll yet, love to see that. We've had some good ones coming in while you're doing that. I want to, before I transition to the last thing, I'm going to try to do one song. I don't know. I was trying it with my big guitar and it was too clunky, so I'm going to try to plunk it out on my ukulele. But before I do that, I wanted to just share in the chat feature here, if I can get back to, I wanted to share the link for giving me your ideas. Once again, with this link, I plan to use all of these as much as I can, assuming that they're appropriate. And I'm also planning to have some special guest speakers. I have one in the works. So if you think you might be someone who would like to join me on like a Zoom call and we kind of do like a radio conversation back and forth and you could help me talk through some things, I'm looking to have some guest speakers. So if there's a topic that you'd really like to be able to co-present with me, please let me know. You can do that. I also want you to know, that's going to be a long link, but I'm putting it in anyway. Okay, so the link I just put in the chat is where you can go and tell me. And if you've already done one, you want to do one again, that's fine. I see people respond to prizes. So, hey, whenever I get to use them, I will still send you a gift card and I'll touch base with you and find out what works better for you. If you want Starbucks, if you want Dunkin' Donuts, I'm going with the coffee theme though. So let me take a sip of my hot chocolate. One of my nephews, I think it was one of my nephews that used to call it chocolate, my chocolate milk, or maybe it was one of my nieces. Maybe my sister could tell me. I think it was in her family, but anyway, while you're filling that out. So this I wanted to share with you guys as I kind of wrap this up tonight. And feel free to keep putting in your comments as you want to, filling out that poll. Oh, real quick before I do this, I'm still getting the prototype made for my coffee mug, so I hope to have one. It'll probably be a couple weeks because I'm not ordering 75 of them. But you don't know. I think it was one of your daughters, maybe. Anyway, so last week's I had a few people who responded to, if you were a therapist, what fictional character would you love to have as a client? and why. I had Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird. This was probably my favorite, and it's going to be the one I choose that wins for this one. The only problem is it's not a fictional character. This person said, my husband, because then maybe we could have more productive conversations. That just struck my funny bone. So that's going to be the winner of my prototype, my coffee mug. But I will be getting some of those made. So if you think you want to have a coffee cup once you see it, you can let me know and I'll get some more ordered. But and then there was Anne Shirley from Anne of Green Gables, because I'd like to see how she dealt, how her mistakes helped her grow into the person she became. So those were from last week. So once again, if you hadn't done the loneliness and you wanted to chime in on that, feel free. Right now, we still have holidays is still the winner. And that's kind of to be expected. So real quick, I like to give song lyrics, especially those of you in my family know that growing up and even now, being able to see the words I know for Dad was a really important thing because he couldn't always hear it so well. So I want to make sure you guys can see this lyrics. It's not a brand new one, but it's one that I've always really, really appreciated. Here we go. So I'm going to put the link. It's called I Am Not Alone. And we've talked about loneliness tonight. And the reality is you may feel alone, but you're never alone. He will never leave us. He will never forsake us. For some people, that might be daunting, that God never leaves us, that there's always somebody watching you. But the fact that he will never leave us to go through things on our own, that while we're missing our loved ones, that we may feel alone in a crowded room, he is closer than a brother. He knows every thought that in mind. He calls us his own. And so anyway, I was trying to sing this song for you, and hopefully I can get the chords right on this ukulele. So if I mess it up, forgive me. Okay, that was a warm-up. All right, so it goes. When I walk through deep waters, I know that you will be with me. When I'm standing in the fire, I will not be overcome. Lord, if I through the valley of the shadow, I will not fear. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. In the midst of deep sorrow, I see your light is breaking through. Dark night not overtake me. I am pressing into you. me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. You amaze me, redeem me. You call me as your own. You amaze me, redeem me. You call me as your own. You amaze me, redeem me. You call me as your own. You amaze me, redeem me. You call me as your own. You're my strength, you're my defender, you're my refuge in the storm. Through these trials, you've always been faithful. You bring healing to my soul. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. Oh, I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. So that's one of my favorites. Sorry for the beginning of it, but I think hopefully by the words that you see that, hopefully that song is an encouragement to you tonight. So if you think of anything you'd like to add, anything you'd like to be able to hear about at another point in time, anything you'd like to co-host with me, please let me know. I really appreciate you guys joining me on this Monday night. Thank you to all of you who would love to be able to join us live, but just can't because maybe you're putting your kids to bed. I know some of you have told me that, but you tell me that you tune in afterwards. So thank you so much for your support. If you haven't done so already, if you go to the Lessons from the Waiting Room Facebook page, there is a group that is just for Coffee Talk with Kim. And I will try to be putting more deals, promos, things in that page. Because I can also do polls from there as well. So thank you guys for joining me. Molly is the winner. She will get the gift card. Molly, I will connect with you to find out where you would like your gift card to. And you guys are wonderful. Love to you all. And I will see you next week. Have a great week, guys.